his sacrifice was for all mankind, and that for all our ills and all the things in our fallen nature. It was a redemption.
For years, Mel Gibson has been one of Hollywood's most talked about figures, praised for his talent, yet surrounded by mystery. But recently, he said something that left fans stunned. In a rare and emotional moment, Gibson finally broke his silence, hinting at something far deeper than fame or controversy. His words sparked endless questions about what really happened behind the scenes. What could he be referring to? A career secret? A life-changing event? Or something even stranger? Whatever it is, Gibson's revelation has the world looking back at his life with new curiosity. Join us in this video as we reveal the details. The silence that still echoes. For almost 20 years, Mel Gibson avoided talking about what really happened on the set of The Passion of the Christ. Whenever someone brought it up, he'd just smile faintly and say, "God worked through it," before changing the subject. But those who were there could tell something had changed in him. Some whispered that he made a private vow never to tell the full story. Others believed he simply couldn't put it into words. Then one day, during a quiet off-camera interview, Gibson was asked again what truly happened. He paused, looked down, and softly said 7 haunting words. To this day, no one can explain it. Those words carried the weight of 2 decades of whispers, of strange lightning, mysterious figures, and moments no one could rationalize. A man who played Judas later converted. Crew members walked away from filmmaking forever. It wasn't just superstition, and it wasn't rumor. It was something deeper. Even now, those who were there say they still feel it when they re-watch the film. That same heavy stillness in the air, that same silence between breaths, because The Passion of the Christ wasn't only about what happened 2,000 years ago, it was about what happens whenever truth and darkness collide on the same ground. So how did it all start? Keep watching to find out. The vision that defied Hollywood. In 1998, Mel Gibson had it all. Fame, fortune, and the kind of Hollywood success most actors only dream of. He'd won Oscars, headlined blockbusters, and become one of the most bankable stars in the world. But behind that glittering facade, he was falling apart. Addiction had him in its grip. Depression shadowed his every move. The fame that once fueled him now felt empty, meaningless. And then, in the depths of that darkness, something happened. Broken and desperate, Gibson fell to his knees and reconnected with his Catholic faith so intensely that it bordered on obsession. He began devouring the Gospels, studying ancient writings, and losing himself in the mystical visions of the nun Anne Catherine Emmerich. From that spiritual awakening came a vision so bold, so raw, that it would shake Hollywood to its core. He wanted to show the crucifixion exactly as it happened. No filters, no gloss, no watered-down version for modern audiences. It would be real, brutal, and utterly uncompromising. When he took this vision to Hollywood's major studios, the response was swift and unanimous. Rejection. Executives called it career-ending, a subtitled R-rated religious film with no stars. Impossible. But Gibson refused to back down. Instead, he made a decision that stunned the entire industry. He would fund it himself. He poured $30 million of his own money into production and another $15 million into marketing. If it failed, he'd lose everything. But for Gibson, this wasn't about profit or prestige. This was a divine mission. And, as he would soon discover, missions from God always come with a price. What did the Passion of the Christ really mean to Mel Gibson, and how did he show it through his cast? Let's find out. The calling, the cross, and the presence. Mel Gibson wasn't chasing box office success. He was chasing purpose. The Passion of the Christ wasn't meant to entertain. It was meant to awaken. That's why he made one more radical decision. No famous actors, no celebrity cameos, no Hollywood distractions. He didn't want the audience to see movie stars. He wanted them to see the story, the message that had haunted him since his spiritual rebirth. For Gibson, the film had to feel ancient, as if it existed outside of time itself. It couldn't just look authentic, it had to be authentic. He wanted viewers to forget they were watching actors and feel as though they were standing at the foot of the cross. That belief led him to Jim Caviezel. At the time, Caviezel wasn't a household name. He was known for his depth, his quiet strength, and his deeply rooted faith, qualities that Gibson saw as essential. When Mel offered him the role of Jesus, Jim accepted immediately. But before filming began, Gibson called him back, not to discuss the script or the logistics, but to warn him, "You might never work in this town again." The film was too raw, too controversial. It could end his career. Caviezel didn't hesitate. He simply said, "We all have to carry our crosses." With that, the decision was made. Gibson then doubled down on his vision. The film would be spoken entirely in Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew, the original languages of the time, no English, no modern interpretations, and no translations during filming. He wanted complete immersion, believing that emotion itself would transcend words. The pain, the betrayal, the love, they would speak in every look, every cry, every silence. Language, in Gibson's hands, became something more than communication. It became an atmosphere. The cutting precision of Latin, the haunting rhythm of Aramaic, each word carved the story deeper into the heart. It was ancient and alive, distant yet devastatingly human, and Gibson wasn't finished breaking Hollywood's rules. While most directors would rely on digital effects, he turned away from them completely. He wanted everything to be real. Real dirt, real blood, real suffering. So he chose Matera, Italy, a city carved into stone, untouched by time, where the air itself felt biblical. The conditions were brutal. The wind howled through the hills, the cold cut through the crew, and the terrain punished every step. But that was exactly what Gibson wanted. On one of those unforgiving slopes, they built Golgotha. Not a set, not a prop, but a full crucifixion site. Rough wooden crosses, stone tools, dirt paths, every detail painfully real. And then, something strange began to happen. As production started, a quiet heaviness filled the air. Caviezel later said it didn't feel like a film set at all. Crew members would stop mid-scene, overcome with emotion, as if something unseen had brushed past them. The atmosphere became charged, solemn, reverent. Inexplicable stories began to circulate. People spoke in hushed tones about what they'd felt, what they'd seen. It wasn't superstition, it was presence. A sacred weight settled over everyone there. The suffering, the sacrifice, the story itself. It wasn't just being told. It was happening, right there in the air they breathed. What strange occurrences happened during the shooting of the film that made crew members and cast uneasy? Stay tuned to find out. The storm over Golgotha. The year was 2002. Mel Gibson had just arrived in Matera, Italy, an ancient city carved from stone, where every wall, cave, and street seemed to breathe with the weight of history. To the locals, this wasn't just another place. It was sacred land, a place where the earth itself remembered. For Gibson, it was perfect. He wasn't looking for Hollywood backdrops or movie magic. He wanted truth, and he believed Matera, haunted by the echoes of Golgotha, was the only place where the story of Christ could be told as it truly was. But even before the first camera rolled, strange things began to happen. Crew members whispered that something felt off. "It's strange," one cameraman said. "When we rehearse, the light feels normal, but the moment we film the crucifixion, it changes, like the air bends." At first, they laughed, blaming stress or exhaustion, but the laughter didn't last long. Behind Gibson's quiet confidence, there was a man still wrestling with his demons. Years of addiction, guilt, and anger had nearly destroyed him. He'd lived two lives, the public hero and the private wreck, and the passion of the Christ had become his act of penance. Every frame felt like a prayer. He studied ancient manuscripts, spoke with theologians, and pored over the visions of saints who claimed to have witnessed the crucifixion. He wanted to strip away centuries of sanitized imagery and reveal the horror and holiness of what truly happened: flesh torn, blood spilled, agony, forgiveness, redemption. Each night began with prayer. Each morning, Gibson opened his Bible and asked for strength. Slowly, those around him began to notice something strange. The line between filmmaking and faith was fading. "It didn't feel like we were making a movie," one makeup artist recalled. "It felt like we were being watched or tested." The first day of shooting was unnervingly still. The wind died, the valley went silent, and a grey haze dimmed the sky. Then, without warning, violent gusts tore through the set, ripping tents and scattering equipment. No one could explain it. From then on, every time they filmed scenes of pain or redemption, the weather changed, as though the story itself was stirring the elements, and then came the lightning. During the Sermon on the Mount, Jim Caviezel stood beneath a clear sky. No clouds, no thunder. Suddenly, a blinding flash split the air. The cross in his hands began to smoke, his hair singed, and for a moment, everyone froze. Caviezel was struck, but unharmed. Minutes later, the assistant director, Jan Michelini, was hit twice. The crew went silent. They looked at the man playing Christ, standing alive beneath a smoking cross. "That's no coincidence," someone whispered. From that day forward, everything changed. Caviezel's performance became something more than acting. During one brutal whipping scene, a chain missed its mark and tore open his flesh. His shoulder dislocated while carrying the 150-pound cross. He lost over 40 pounds, suffered pneumonia from the freezing winds, yet refused to stop. "If you want to play Christ," he later said, "you'd better be ready to suffer." At night, he couldn't sleep. He fasted before scenes, and the crew began to say he was different, drained, pale, trembling, and almost detached from the world. "There were moments," Caviezel admitted, "when I felt I wasn't alone in my body. Something else was guiding me." Gibson saw it too. The man before him no longer felt like an actor. He had become the role. The set itself seemed to transform. Matera's stone hills became their church, their battlefield. Each time the crucifixion scenes began, the same eerie phenomena returned: wind, thunder, whispers echoing across the valley. A sound technician claimed he caught voices on the recordings, voices that didn't belong to anyone on set. Another crew member quit suddenly, saying, "I can't be here anymore. It feels cursed." But others disagreed. "It wasn't a curse," one said quietly. "It was a confrontation, light against darkness." Even skeptics started to pray before shooting. Some said they felt something brush past them, a chill or vibration in the air. One day, a cinematographer reviewing footage froze. In the shadows of certain shots, faint shapes, faces seemed to appear. Figures no one remembered filming. No one spoke of it again. To Gibson, none of it was a coincidence. He gathered the crew one morning and said simply, "We're not just telling a story. We're stepping into it." So what? How did the film leave its mark on the cast and crews? Also, how did it shake the world? Let's find out. Miracles, shadows, and the weight of glory. What happened on the set of The Passion of the Christ didn't end when the cameras stopped. Its spiritual impact was unlike anything ever seen in film history. Cast and crew alike began to experience things they couldn't explain. Luca Lionello, the Italian actor who portrayed Judas Iscariot, and who had been a lifelong atheist, shocked everyone when he converted to Christianity shortly after filming. He said he felt the presence of something divine and terrifying surrounding him during production, a power he couldn't deny. Others described vivid nightmares that bled into waking life, strange fevers that no doctor could explain, and a haunting insomnia that lasted for weeks after the most intense scenes. Some crew members began carrying rosaries. Others brought Bibles to the set. A few even sought baptism before production wrapped. What was once just a movie set had turned into something else entirely. A pilgrimage site, a living altar, a place humming with unseen energy. But for every story of faith and renewal, there were others shrouded in silence. Some refused to talk about what they had seen or felt, as if speaking of it would invite something back. It was as though they'd made a quiet pact of secrecy with whatever presence had walked among them. Then came February 25th, 2004, Ash Wednesday, the day the film finally reached the world. Gibson had ignored Hollywood's playbook completely. There were no glossy magazine covers, no celebrity endorsements, no red carpet premieres. Instead, he took the film directly to the people churches became his theaters. Pastors received early cuts, built sermons around its message, and encouraged congregations to see it together. Whole church groups booked out cinemas, turning screenings into communal acts of worship. The results stunned everyone. On opening day alone, The Passion of the Christ earned $23.5 million. By the end of its first weekend, $83.8 million. By the time its theatrical run was over, it had grossed $611 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing R-rated film in history. A story Hollywood had rejected as commercial ending had become a global phenomenon. But with that success came a storm. Jewish organizations condemned the film for its portrayal of Jewish leaders, calling it inflammatory and dangerous. Critics labeled it the most violent movie ever made. Audiences fainted in theaters. Some even suffered heart attacks during the crucifixion scenes. Yet, for millions more, the film was nothing short of life-changing. Reports poured in of viewers experiencing physical healing, reconciliation, and profound spiritual awakenings. For some, it reignited their faith. For others, it sparked it for the very first time. Churches used it as a tool for evangelism, and its success opened the door to an entire wave of faith-based cinema. But beneath all the praise and controversy, one truth remained. The film had left a mark deeper than art. It was no longer just a movie. It was an encounter. Something had moved through it, something that, as Gibson himself once whispered, no one can explain to this day. Before The Passion of the Christ was released, there were talks to stop it. How did that go? Stay tuned to find out. The fire. Before the flame. Long before The Passion of the Christ ever reached a theatre, it was already igniting one of the most heated controversies in modern film history. And it wasn't about art, acting, or even violence. It was about something far older and far more painful: anti-Semitism. From the moment early drafts of the script began to circulate, religious leaders, scholars, and Jewish advocacy groups raised alarms. The warnings came swiftly, and they came loudly. Critics weren't just worried, they were terrified. They saw echoes of a narrative that history had spent decades trying to unlearn. One of the first to take action was New York Assemblyman Dov Hikind. When word spread that 20th Century Fox protests erupted outside the News Corporation building in Manhattan. Under mounting pressure, Fox backed out. Hikind didn't stop there. He warned other companies bluntly, they should not distribute this film. This is unhealthy for Jews all over the world. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, a joint committee representing the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and the Anti-Defamation League obtained a copy of the early script. What they found, they said, was deeply disturbing. Their internal report described it as one of the most troublesome texts relative to anti-Semitic potential that any of us had seen in 25 years. Their concern centered not on Hollywood dramatization, but on the story itself. The film's depiction of the Jewish high priests, particularly Caiaphas, painted them not as conflicted religious figures of their time, but as a cold, calculating elite conspiring to destroy Jesus. They warned that this wasn't just dramatic storytelling. It was a revival of the same narrative that had once fueled centuries of hatred, persecution, and violence. Their report didn't hold back. This is precisely the storyline that fueled centuries of anti-Semitism within Christian societies. Unless Mr. Gibson has altered this basic storyline, The Passion of the Christ retains a real potential for undermining the repudiation of classical Christian anti-Semitism by the churches in the last 40 years. The Anti-Defamation League soon issued its own statement, echoing those fears. For them, this wasn't about gore, dialogue, or Hollywood liberties. It was about the power of imagery. A story this potent, told to millions, could reopen wounds the world had spent generations trying to heal. To them, The Passion of the Christ wasn't just a film, it was a test, a reminder of how easily art could blur into history and how quickly history could awaken the ghosts of hatred that still lingered in the shadows. But what legacy did the film leave behind? Keep watching to find out. Beyond the silver screen. 21 years on, The Passion of the Christ remains far more than a movie. It was a spiritual crucible, leaving invisible scars and profound changes on everyone involved. For the cast and crew, it wasn't filmmaking. It was a journey where art met the divine, and the line between the earthly and the eternal vanished. The film proved that Hollywood had underestimated the hunger for authentic spiritual stories. It reshaped an industry and touched millions of lives across the globe. Yet one question lingers. Was it just a film, or something far more powerful? Something that opened a doorway between worlds? The silence of those who experienced it firsthand suggests a story beyond explanation. A cross they continue to carry, a secret too profound or dangerous to reveal. What are your thoughts on Mel Gibson finally breaking his silence? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.